Imagine a family empire built on questionable ethics, spanning generations, and then it crumbles. Not from a hostile takeover or a legal battle, but from something far more insidious. A silent will. This isn't a document. It's an unspoken agreement that ultimately brought down everything my family held dear. How can something unwritten be so powerful, so destructive? Stay tuned to uncover the surprising truth behind its downfall. You see, when people in America think about 56 generational wealth, they imagine trust funds, perfectly drafted wills, and lawyers reading out who gets what. They picture lake houses, old family money, and polite conversations over expensive dinners. My story has some of that, but underneath it all was something darker. A 45 family secret no one dared to say out loud. An invisible contract that controlled every decision we made, and like any contract built on silence, it came with a cost. If you looked at our family photo from the outside, you'd probably feel a little jealous. A wide, manicured lawn. A stone driveway curving up to a massive house that honestly looked more like a small hotel than a home. My grandfather in the center, chest out, that classic self-made man look on his face. My grandmother in pearls, smiling like nothing in the world could touch her. If you saw that photo, you'd think, that's success. That's the American dream. But what that picture doesn't show is the shadow stretching out behind it. It doesn't show the quiet tension in my mum's jaw, or the look in my grandfather's eyes like he knew something none of us were ready to admit. My grandfather didn't start out rich. He grew up poor in a small Midwestern town where factories closed and never came back. He watched his own father get laid off 3 times before he was 15. To him, money wasn't just comfort. It was survival. It was respect. So when he finally got a chance to build something, he did what a lot of people do when they feel left behind. He stopped asking if what he was doing was right, started only asking if it worked. He started small. A used car lot on the edge of town. Flashy promises. Bad credit. No problem. He knew what desperation looked like, and he knew desperate people don't read the fine print. So he made the fine print as painful as possible. High interest. Rates. Balloon payments. Hidden fees. He'd sell hope on 4 wheels and watch it break down a month later. Protected by a contract written so tightly you couldn't slip a breath of fairness through it. People got taken advantage of, but Grandpa got rich. Was it ethical? No. Was it profitable? Extremely. That's where our empire began. Not with integrity, but with compromise. The car lot turned into 3, then 5, then a financing company. Within 10 years, he wasn't selling cars. He was selling debt, title loans, rent-to-own furniture, short-term personal loans with long-term consequences. If there was a way to turn a struggling person's situation into a profit, my grandfather found it in our town. People called him a job creator. Local politicians invited him to fundraisers. He donated to churches. He played the role of the generous, successful businessman perfectly. And nobody looked too closely at how, exactly. He made his money because the story was simple. He worked hard. He earned it. The truth was, He built our 56 generational wealth on the backs of the desperate. I remember my father telling me about the first time Grandpa took him to the office. It was the moment he realized his family wasn't just doing well. They were running the show. But he also heard the fear in the voices of people calling the collections department. He asked my grandfather once, quietly, "Does this ever bother you?" Grandpa didn't miss a beat. "No," he said, "because they made their choices. I'm just enforcing the terms. Remember that, son. In this world, the people willing to enforce the terms are the ones who win." That sentence became our unofficial motto: enforce the terms. Growing up, I didn't know the details. I just knew we were a business family. At the dinner table, we didn't talk about ethics. We talked about numbers. How did collections do this quarter? What's the default rate? I heard phrases like recoverable loss. I didn't realize until much later that recoverable loss meant how much pain we can still squeeze out before we write the debt off. And that's where the silent will began. When people hear the word will, they think about a document. In my family, the real inheritance, the one that shaped our lives, was never written down. It was spoken in half-finished sentences and loaded silences. At one Thanksgiving, my aunt, who had become a teacher and distanced herself from the business, "After you guys ever thought about changing some of the policies? Do you ever worry about the people on the other side of those contracts?" The room went dead quiet. My grandfather set his fork down slowly. My dad stared at his plate. Finally, Grandpa said, "We help people who can't get help anywhere else. If they don't like the terms, they don't have to sign." My aunt nodded, defeated. "Okay, I was just asking." But the message was clear. We don't question the business. We don't challenge the terms. That was the 56 hidden will. We saw how my grandfather treated my aunt after that colder, distant decisions got made without her. We saw what happened when someone pushed against the unspoken rules. They didn't get cut out legally. They got cut out with silence. And in some ways, that was worse. A legal will tells you where you stand. A silent will makes you guess and keeps you trying to prove you're loyal enough to stay in. Our real education happened in car rides and overheard calls. When I was 17, my dad started taking me on ride-alongs. "You're going to see the inside, kid," he'd say. "Most people don't understand the machine. But your family." I'd sit in meetings where managers discussed delinquent accounts like they were just numbers, not single parents juggling rent and medical bills. Then came the night the 65 family betrayal of the public trust hit the news. We were in the living room. The news anchor's voice shifted to that serious tone. "Tonight, a story about controversial lending practices impacting our community." The screen showed a woman at her kitchen table, crying. Under her name was the logo of one of our companies. She talked about a small loan for car repairs that spiraled into unpayable debt. She talked about choosing between groceries and a minimum payment. My dad muted the TV. He said, "She signed the contract. Nobody forced her." I wanted to say, "But did she understand it? Is this who we are?" Instead, I stayed quiet. The silent will pressed in on me. But that night, I went to bed with that woman's face in my mind and my family's money in my bank account. and I started to wonder, what happens when your inheritance is tied to harm? I didn't know it then, but the empire was starting to crack. Not from the outside, but from within. In the next part, I'm going to show you how that quiet doubt turned into open 64 inheritance conflict. How my generation became the greatest threat to the empire we were supposed to protect. Because sometimes, the biggest betrayal isn't about who gets left out of the will. It's about who refuses to follow the silent one. I went away to college. That's what you do in families with 56 generational wealth. You go to a good school, you get a business degree, and you come back to take your place. But college does something dangerous to a silent will. It gives you a voice. I sat in ethics classes where professors used case studies that looked suspiciously like my family's business model. I heard classmates talk about predatory lending with disgust. For the first time, I wasn't in the bubble. I was seeing us through the world's eyes. When I came back to join the firm, I had a plan. I was naive. I thought I could modernize us. I thought I could convince my father and grandfather that we could still make money without destroying people. I remember the first board meeting I presented at. I had charts. I had data showing that offering fairer repayment terms actually increased long-term customer loyalty. We can rebrand, I said. We can be the ethical choice. My dad didn't even look at the charts. He looked at me. Loyalty doesn't pay the light bill, he said. Compliance does. Fear does. You're trying to fix something that isn't broken. That was the wall. The 54 toxic family dynamics weren't just about personal relationships. They were baked into the P&L statement. To change the business was to insult the creator of the business. To suggest we could be better was to imply my grandfather had been bad. And in a family ruled by a silent will, that is the ultimate sin. The turning point wasn't a business decision. It was biology. My grandfather, the titan, the man who built the empire from a used car lot to a regional powerhouse, had a stroke. He lingered for 3 weeks, and in those 3 weeks, the silence in the family got louder. You see. Usually, when a patriarch dies, people worry about the will. Who gets the house? Who gets the stocks? But we weren't worried about the money. We all knew we'd be taken care of. We were worried about control. The silent will had always been enforced by him. He was the judge, jury, and executioner. Without him, who interpreted the rules, who decided what was loyal and what was betrayal, my dad assumed it was him. He was the eldest. He had spent 40 years enforcing the terms. But my cousin, Michael, who ran the legal department, had other ideas. And I was the wild card. The day the actual will was read. It was anticlimactic. The assets were split evenly. My dad, my aunt, the grandkids, everyone got their share on paper. It was fair. But the 64 inheritance conflict started the moment we walked out of that office. My dad stopped Michael at his car. We need to talk about the collection strategy for Q4, Dad said. It wasn't a question. It was a command. Michael smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Actually, Uncle, I think we need to review the legality of the new aggressive call-in tactics. With Grandpa gone, the regulatory heat is going to turn up. We're exposed. Dad's face turned red. We run this company the way he ran it. That's how we honor him. We honor him by not losing the company to a class action lawsuit, Michael. Shot back. That was the first shot fired. The 33 probate war wasn't fought in court. It was fought in the boardroom. The family fractured into factions. Team loyalty, my dad. Keep doing exactly what we've always done. Squeeze every cent. Admit no fault. Team survival, Michael. Protect the assets. Settle lawsuits quietly. Change just enough to stay legal. Team reform me. Change the model. Entirely before it destroys us. The silent will was supposed to keep us united. Instead, without the enforcer, it turned us against each other. Every family dinner became a negotiation. Every birthday party was a battlefield. And here is where the insidious nature of the silent will really shines. My dad started using my grandfather's memory as a weapon. If I suggested a change, he'd say, "Your grandfather would be ashamed of you." If Michael refused to sign off on a risky legal move, Dad would say, "He knew you didn't have the stomach for this." He was using guilt to manipulate the business strategy. He was weaponizing our grief to maintain control. This is a classic sign of 51 narcissistic family systems, using the legacy to justify abuse. The tension broke 6 months after the funeral. I found a file on the server. It was a list of high-risk accounts, elderly people, veterans, people on disability. Historically, we had treated these accounts with slightly more care, mostly to avoid bad PR. But I saw a new memo, authorized by my father. Subject: Accelerated Recovery Strategy. Content: Initiate immediate foreclosure proceedings on all accounts 60+ days past due. No exceptions. He was going after grandmothers. He was going after veterans. He was taking the cruelty of the silent will and amplifying it, trying to prove he was tough enough to fill his father's shoes. I walked into his office. I didn't knock. "You can't do this," I said, slamming the file on his desk. "This isn't business. This is predation." He looked up, calm, terrifyingly calm. "It's revenue," he said. "And if you don't like it, you can cash out your shares and leave. But if you stay, you get in line." I realized then, the empire wasn't built on money. It was built on complicity. You were either a predator or you were prey. There was no middle ground. I had a choice. I could stay, keep my mouth shut, and collect my dividends. I could be rich and silent, or I could break the silence. I called Michael. "I'm done," I said. "But before I go, we need to stop him." Michael paused. "If we move against him, we destroy the family. You know that, right? There's no coming back from a 50 hostile takeover of your own father." "The family is already destroyed," I told him. "Now we're just fighting over the wreckage. We didn't launch a hostile takeover. We didn't have the votes. My dad had charmed the other shareholders, the distant cousins who just wanted their checks. So, we did something the silent will explicitly forbade. We went outside the family. I didn't leak documents to the press. Not yet. But I did reach out to a regulatory consultant, a third party. I asked for an independent audit of our compliance. practices. When the notification hit my dad's inbox, the explosion was immediate. He viewed it as the ultimate 65 family betrayal. Bringing an outsider in to look at our books. Asking a stranger to judge our ethics. He called an emergency meeting. He didn't invite me. He tried to have me fired from the board that night. But he forgot one thing. The silent will only works if everyone is afraid of it. And I wasn't afraid anymore. I was just tired. The audit was just the spark. The fire was coming. In the final part, I'll tell you how the government got involved. How the silent will was finally read aloud in a federal courtroom. And the day the padlocks went on the doors. We thought we were fighting each other. We didn't realize we were all standing on a trapdoor. We thought the audit would be a wake-up call. We thought a consultant would come in, slap my dad on the wrist, and force us to adopt best practices. We thought we could sanitize the empire without killing it. We were wrong when you lift a rock that hasn't moved in 40 years. You don't just find dirt. You find rot. The independent auditor sat at the head of the table 3 weeks later. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't charmed by the mahogany table or the portraits of my grandfather. He pushed a single piece of paper across the desk to my father. "We can't sign off on your books," he said. "And legally, I have to report what I found regarding the insurance products you've been bundling with loans." My father laughed. A nervous, arrogant laugh. Everyone does that. It's industry standard. "It was illegal 10 years ago," the auditor said. "You've been auto-enrolling customers without consent. That's fraud. Systemic, documented fraud." The room went cold. The silent will, the agreement to never look too closely, to never ask questions, hadn't just hidden unethical behavior. It had hidden criminal behavior. My grandfather hadn't just been smart. He had been breaking the law, and he had taught his son to do the same, convincing him it was just clever business. It happened on a Tuesday. I wasn't in the office. I was at home, drinking coffee, when my phone blew up. "They're here." That was the text from Michael. I turned on the TV. Aerial footage showed agents in windbreakers carrying boxes out of the building. The same building where I'd played as a kid. The same building where my grandfather told us we were better than everyone else. The 57 family reputation disintegrated in ours. The local politicians who used to take our donations, they released statements condemning us. The church where my grandfather had a pew named after him, they removed the plaque. But the worst part wasn't the public shame. It was the family group chat. Accusations flew. "You did this." My aunt screamed at me via text. "You destroyed your father. Grandpa is rolling in his grave." I wanted to type back, "Grandpa built the grave. We just fell into it." The trial lasted 6 months. It was the United States versus my family and the star witness. The silent will itself. Prosecutors brought up emails, memos, and recordings. They showed the jury exactly how the sausage was made. They played a recording of a manager meeting where my dad joked about milking the cows, referring to our customers. I sat in the back. I wasn't a defendant. I had cooperated early enough to get immunity, but I was still on trial in the eyes of my family. My dad wouldn't look at me. He looked smaller. The Titan Act doesn't work when you're facing Federal charges. Guilty on 14 counts of wire fraud and predatory lending practices. The fines were astronomical. The restitution payments were even higher. The judge looked at my father and said, "You inherited a machine designed to exploit, and you chose to speed it up." The empire was liquidated. The office building sold. The lake house seized. The trust funds drained to pay lawyers and victims. 56 generational wealth usually takes 3 generations to disappear. My family managed to lose it in one afternoon. After the sentencing, the silence finally broke, but not in a good way. My father went to minimum security prison for 2 years. He came out an old, bitter man. He still blames the government overreach. He still blames me. He never accepted that the business model was the poison. I tried to visit him once. He wouldn't open the door. My cousins stopped talking to me because their easy ride was over. They had to get real jobs. They had to learn how to live without the safety net of the empire. So here I am. I don't have the mansion. I don't have the millions. And strangely, I feel lighter. The silent will is gone. I don't have to enforce terms I don't believe in. I don't have to look at a struggling person and wonder how to profit from there. Pain. At the beginning of this video, I asked, how can something unwritten be so powerful, so destructive? The answer is simple: complicity. A silent will only works if you agree to be silent. It draws its power from your fear of being an outsider. It tricks you into thinking that 47 family loyalty is worth more than your own soul. My family's empire didn't crumble because of a bad economy. It crumbled because it was built on a lie, that you can separate your wealth from your values. If you are watching this, and you are part of a family business, or you're building a legacy for your own kids, ask yourself, what is the unwritten rule in your house? What are you teaching them that you aren't saying out loud? Are you teaching them to win at all costs? Or are you teaching them that how you win matters? Because money can be lost, buildings can be sold, but the truth is the only inheritance that lasts.